Everyone says you should turn challenges into opportunities, but I want to dig deep today and talk about the anatomy of how that really works in the real world, because the real world's messy and it's not clean. And it's great to have you on the show today.
I appreciate being invited and given the opportunity to share this platform with both of you.
Sandra, it is so good to see you, to have you on the show. It's been a while since we've seen each other. We did run into each other over the weekend at a Catholic conference, and it was wonderful to see you. But I'll just do a brief introduction so people know a little bit about you before we get into this topic of major life challenges and overcoming them. Sandra Bueno is principal in at least 3 different organizations: Empowered for Life Academy, and Empowered for Life Productions, plus Family Honor. And basically, you are serving as a self-employed life coach now, spending time between here, Cary, North Carolina, and France. And but about her background, first of all, she is a United States Air Force veteran and spent many years in public affairs with the U.S. Air Force. And she's worked in industry too, including for airlines. And she might tell us a little bit about that, because I think you experienced a major life challenge and overcame it when you were working for the airlines. We know each other because she's been very involved with a couple of Catholic churches here in the Raleigh area. And I know you're a member of St. Michael's, St. Andrew, and probably a parish in France now, right? And also, she was very instrumental in helping me edit the careering book, How to Find and Maintain Meaningful Work in Today's Economy. And maybe some of that editing will come up as we discuss here, because she really helped us turn the tide on some very important concepts, and we appreciate that. She's very devoted to volunteer activities, the coaching, and a lot to do with parents and women. Moms, and very passionate about that. But, more will unfold. If there's something you want to add that I haven't said here so far, you're blogging, you're establishing a new business. We've talked about that, maybe a course online, the whole 9 yards. So she's really into it, helping people with this very topic.
I do. I mean, I don't want to say a lot more, except people need to remember Spirit of Life Pro. That's huge, because spirit for me is everything. So Spirit of Life Pro, it's my new venture. It's not my new venture, but it's where I am right now in life and in creating what God has called me to do. So I'm very excited to be able to share it with all of you.
Major life transitions,
That's
guys.
Right. That's right. Let's talk about the real anatomy of this with you, because you've really done the deep dive in it. And I think this stuff is name dropped, but they don't talk about specifically what do you do, how do you approach it. Obviously, each case is different, but I'd like to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say number one is my nature it's my own psychology, that I look at things and I look at, what is this teaching me? I kind of play around with it, and I'd say that comes from my faith, my Christian faith, my belief in God and a higher being. So I'm very much about, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me with this? And I've always, I kind of gave myself a lot of rope out of curiosity, out of always wanting to learn, because I always knew my purpose, at least from when I remember at 9 years old, ninth grade, when I was asked what my name meant, and it meant helper of mankind. So that I identified with that. So after that, it was always like, the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm supposed to learn. I'm supposed to be there, do that, and then figure out what works, what doesn't. So it kind of became this pattern that along the journey of life, when something showed up, in a way, as much as it was personal, I didn't take it personally. Like, I didn't sit there with the grief. I sat there with more of like, okay, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So if you're looking at the anatomy, that was kind of my psychology for dealing with challenges.
You just said a key word. I think it's my temperament. The areas I care about is people who it's not their temperament, because they're the ones that suffer the most. So you're really talking about a temperament towards something that we often bring into this world or develop at a very young age. I'm more interested in how do we help the people where the temperament's opposite, where they completely associate to it, where they are drawn to hopelessness, and and the transition to start moving beyond it. I'll give a simple example we talk about in our training is I noticed at one point in my life that I disassociated with acknowledgement and associated with failure. And I thought, well, that's not a good strategy. And then studied a little bit about language patterns and how this works and realized I've got to start recoding my neurology so I associate to something of value and disassociate for it. And this was a very long path to move on, to make progress with it. And that's to me the interest, because if someone has the aptitude towards it, okay, that's a gift. And people go, yeah, but I'm not you. And that's what I really want to address. But when we can move outside ourselves into the other person's world, because in my coaching, I treat each person like a fingerprint that has their own paradigm. Mm-hmm. And my goal is to see through their eyes and see what their aptitude towards, what are their automatic ways of moving. I'd love to hear your views on that.
Wow. You know what? That's a good challenge, because I automatically see it between you and I, where I say, okay, you're more of the brain. You're more of, like you said, the analytical, the sense of like, I want to see black and white. You know, I believe it's right brain, left brain. Like, you know, we're all cut out to be a certain way and to be able to look at life, look at challenges, look at work, you know, look at success. What do you, to me, success is fulfillment. So it's a very spiritual, very emotional way of relating to the outside world. So for me, I'm very careful with what I allow or the meaning I give to things. So I'm not going to particularly purposely pick a meaning that's going to injure me. Like you said, you know, if you have, let's say, a setback, I wouldn't say I'm a failure, because it's self-talk. I'm talking to myself that way and I'm going to believe it. You know, it's the consciousness and the subconsciousness. So to answer your question, for the people who tend to look at life from a very black and white perspective, you know, very much like I would say analytical perspective, the mathematician, the scientist, the engineer, the business person, you know, numbers do not lie. So if you're going to tell me that you're successful, but here I see $0 in the bank, how do you quantify your success? You know, so maybe you could look at, well, let me look at your life. Let's look at your relationships, the relationship with yourself, the relationship with your significant others, the relationship with your kids, relationship with your faith or spirituality, with your health. Your health will tell you where are you in more ways than one. It's like in my coaching, you mentioned coaching. My coaching is about personal development with an emphasis on the spirituality of who we are as human beings, you know, our purpose, our mission, our vision. Like two people can start off at the same place and have a huge vision, but how they arrive is going to determine, you know, did they enjoy the ride or did they struggle? And did they arrive there? And when they arrive, they can't even enjoy the journey. So for me, I think a big clue is understanding, you know, what your motivating factors are and why you want to accomplish that. It's not necessarily about the framework that you use, but I believe is more of the interpretation that leads you to saying, I choose this because this is what it's going to give me. So when you say, I want success, well, why do you want success? You know, what is it going to give you? Is it the money? Is it the status? Is it the self-respect? Is it because someone in your family said you could never do it because they thought you were dumb or you had a problem, ADD, or you had an accident or an incident or lack of money, or you didn't go to the Ivy League school that you wanted to, and then therefore you went to the community college and all of a sudden you thought that it was substandard education? You know, I don't know.
Do you think that, Martin, because in your example, I think you're talking about maybe possibly temporary too.
Well,
these things can be temporary, right? Are you saying some people are automatically predisposed to not being open to, you know, making the most of life challenges and overcoming
yes,
them?
I think so. And,
Yeah,
and my case that I mentioned was I really took a year out to practice associating to the acknowledgement, even if I disagreed with it, and then disassociating and learning from the mistakes. I think, what occurs is we tend to is really understanding the anatomy of the individual and how are they coding this experience. Because if you mentioned you kind of always had an aptitude towards looking, well, that's great, but that's not transferable. That's not something that we can work with, because someone's probably not going to come to you for coaching if that's their approach. I transfer everything into a utility and learn from it.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be, it would be more the person is, I transfer everything into a train wreck and my life seems to constantly fail. And then that's why I want to get underneath this and looking at it, because it's a highly complex, not just digital, but emotional world. We code experiences in our psyche in different ways, and understanding how we code them is very important, because it means if you say, here's the way to do it, and I take whatever's good and convert it to the negative, that's just a self-perpetuating thing. Like if you go, I'm broken intrinsically, and that's a core value, then whatever you do in therapy or coaching or anything else will be converted back to keeping that identity intact. So that's why the conversation was, I love that you said you had an aptitude to it. That's a wonderful blessing that you have. And that has value in itself, just sharing your strategy in it, because someone could take some aspects of it as well.
I like how you explained it, because you definitely said a lot. And there was one word that I caught that you said: complexity. And you said it at the beginning, how as human beings, we all have that digital fingerprint that's unique. So while we're all human beings, and we might share in the same, what can I say, the same characteristics of emotional beings, spiritual beings, physical beings, mental beings, we all display ourselves differently. And we all assimilate these outside forces coming in differently based on environment, our upbringing, our culture, our predisposition, our DNA. So all of that create an incredibly complex system and being. So no two people are the same. So while for you, I may work with you in one way and a framework will work for you, for Dana, it'll be something different. But we can all learn from saying, okay, if this worked for this person now, how do I interpret that? Or how do you interpret that for me and help me understand and apply it to myself? So to your question, I would say you also use the metaphor. You use, like, for example, me being a coach, I use strategies. So I will use specific tools. And in this case, it's a strategy. Some of these are related to, psychotherapy or psychology. It's all psychology also. But it's particularly drawn so that it becomes something that's fun. So when we engage with a person, we're listening, we're asking questions of, like, for example, when you feel your strongest, tell me about that. So I'm already listening. I'm already saying, okay, what moves this person? What is this person? I'll even ask, what do you want more of? So a person will be like, well, I want more, more peace. I want more respect. Okay, so these are values. So now I'm starting to pick, okay, how do you define this value? Show me how respect looks like at work. Show me how when you felt respected, what was that like? Where were you? What did you say? Where did you go? So again, we're using neuro-linguistic programming. We're using so many different, it's like almost like you have a looking glass as a coach, and you're saying, how does this person define themselves? And then where do I see an opportunity for me to open up that space for me to help them reach into themselves and then realize, oh, I had this all along. I didn't realize it. So this is a value that I have. This is what I want. And I will tell you, when you said the train wreck, that's a metaphor. So a metaphor is a picture that now we can take and say, wow, a lot is happening on this side for this individual. And it involves, like, the kitchen sink, the bathroom, the shower, the flippers, the slippers. And you're like, okay, let me help see through this and help this person align so that they can have more of what they want and less of what they don't want. So I will tell you the framework, it's not like I can give you a shot and say, here you are, you're fixed, or you'll be put back together again. But I can tell you that we can make a decision to change what's going on in our lives. And usually it's more fear of pain than pleasure, because we want to, like, for example, we want to look a certain way. The big one is we'll want to look, thinner, fitter, buffer. And all of a sudden you're like, I want to, but you keep eating, you don't want to get up to go to the workout. It's not until, like, for me, it's now like I have to exercise because I have to exercise. I've kind of gotten into this new phase of life, call it age, where now I cannot get away from not exercising because it killed me. It just killed me for 3 months while being here from France. I actually stopped exercising and my body just went into a horrible atrophy, and then it was linked with emotional situations and all these different things. So it all caved on me. And I'm like, I can never again stop working out. And it wasn't like I worked out, something serious, but it was enough to keep my body moving. So, it's either pain or pleasure that's going to get you. And so which is bigger, pain or pleasure?
Excellent point.
Before we move on to maybe some samples of major life transitions, and I think to kind of summarize in my simple terms, okay, what you guys are saying is, if I'm stuck in the mud, there's no such thing as one size fits all self-development or improvement. Mm-hmm. There's no magic wand. I can't pick up just one book. I can't, people say, change your mindset, work on your mindset, go from, pessimistic. It's not that simple is what you guys are saying. And everyone's has a different psychology. And you need to be aware of that and different experiences in your coaching to help them if they do want to choose to do some self-improvement. Does that kind of summarize it?
Yeah.
Sandra, what was your greatest life challenge? What has been your greatest life challenge relevant to your mission and vision?
Wow. I love that question. I would say, I have to say that my greatest life challenge was me becoming a single mom. I got pregnant, and at that moment when I became pregnant, for me, it was like huge, because at that moment I stopped living for me. Like, up to that point in my life, I was already 30, 33. And for me, I was very happy-go-lucky, living my life like no problem. I'm not really planning ahead. I'm very much in the moment. Another one of those blessings, very organic, very spontaneous, very much let's get up and go. You want to go somewhere? Let's go. So all of a sudden, saying yes to pregnancy for me was huge, because it really required me it took me about a year for me to realize, like, this is not about you. And the woman in me talked to the child in me. That was, I think, the first time I realized, like, my inner child, because I remember I was in Florida and I was about to go through the toll. And I remember the way that I was feeling. I remember looking in the mirror and saying, this is not about you anymore. Like, I was like, this is not about you. This is about a child. And for me, it was like, all of a sudden I put the big girl's hat on and I said, okay, I'm going to be the woman that I need to be for my child. And, because prior to that, it was like, it was all about me. It was me, myself, and I. And it was me getting my nails done. It was me traveling wherever I wanted to. It was me, spontaneously being here, going there, having my dreams. And all of a sudden, a child, specifically in a woman's life, it's like a daunting idea that you have a creature living inside of you. Like, I saw a little Facebook post, which is so meaningful. I had never heard it this way. And it said something about only a woman will live with two heartbeats. With, like, that was a big thing that stuck to me, like 2 heartbeats. And I remember feeling that one day in the plane, where for a moment I allowed myself to realize that I had a human being inside of me. And I felt like, oh gosh, okay, this is not a good moment, because I was inside of the plane and I'm like, oh, it feels weird. So that was a huge challenge for me, that it even landed me at the Air Force. That's why I joined the Air Force, for my child.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
I remember a friend of mine, Paul, was commenting on a lot of young people that it's kind of like, this is about me, this is about me, this is about me. What do you think about me? Which you can find on social. And he made a great quote. There's going to be a lot of lonely people in the world, because the truth is, when life was just about me, the meaning of life gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. The aspect of social media influencers, I'll notice this pattern where it's great, it's about me, look at me, it's about me. And then they'll come out and say, I need to admit I'm depressed. And my statement is, why wouldn't you be depressed? You made your life only about you. And it's kind of a socialized narcissism, is that they aren't bad people. It's just they're making their life more and more empty and meaningless by their actions, and they aren't aware of it. That's why I think the point you brought up is, this blessing of having the child was an interrupt that, if it hadn't happened, you probably would have slowly burned out like the rest of them, and your life would have taken a path that many you see, not all, I'm not saying it's the only way, I describe it as a smaller and smaller value in life.
I think that's a really good image. I see it like kind of like, like it's reducing, almost like a funnel going to the final bit, where it's like, if you made your life be only about you, how lonely and sad that's going to be, because sooner or later you're going to stop being relevant. Sooner or later, it doesn't matter who you are. Someone's always going to be prettier. Someone's always going to have more money. Someone's always going to have more fame. And at the end, it's like, and that's what's happening right now, that you could see with, with the significance of so many people who are out there in the media, which is so, it exhausts, it's so robbing of energy. It saps you up, because you have these people who are like saying, like, look at what I ate, look at what I did, look at me, according to me. And at the end of the day is like, I see, what? For example, Madonna, right? I had tickets to go see her 2 nights ago in Antwerp, and I was supposed to be there earlier. And when I got the tickets, I was so happy, just because, she goes back to the 80s. So I remember watching her when I was so young, and she was a superstar. She was incredible. She was countercultural, and she was kind of like my era, where here you had a woman who was very, very gifted in her skill and in her artistry, and also very pushing the envelope and daring. So as a woman, she spoke to that femininity, be it, today I think differently, because I've gotten more mature, and also my faith has really shaped me now where I am today. But the point that I'm making is, I watched a little bit of her tour, actually, and I was like, wow. I'm like, what a change, what a shift, what a different Madonna you see today at 65 or 62. You got to give it to her for the fact that she's still, packing the stadium, and she's still running through. But you see the distinct difference. You see the difference, the toil on her body. You see the way she's dancing now, and you see how she's trying to stay relevant at the same level that she used to be. But you see the difference. There's a huge disparity. She's went into, and I don't mean to say this, she's an artist, and she's in an environment where you have to compete, and where all of a sudden, who is she competing against? So, to what point do you do it? At what point do you actually realize that, hey, this is it? And all of a sudden you look at yourself, and are you fuller or are you more empty? It's challenging.
Sandra, going back to major life transitions, if you're comfortable, when we were working on our book and you were telling your story to us and some of the hardships you had overcome, I'll never forget that you talked about how you were injured. And I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but what you had to overcome. And then you went on and recovered, and you got a global MBA, and you thrived from that. But you went through some real hardship. How did you talk about that, if you would?
Yeah, of course. And this thing also goes back to Martin, to what you asked. I've always seen, that these things, these, because we're all going to hit these moments, like these interruptions or these redirections. I think for me, it's the meaning that we give the things. If you see it as a pain point, then it is going to be a pain point. If you see it as a horror, then it is going to be horrendous. But if you see it as an opportunity, if you see it as frustration, if you see it as, hey, behind frustration, there is growth. Behind frustration, there is figure things out, be resourceful. ask someone, reach out. So for me, when I got injured, it wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a succession of 5 different injuries to the same area, which turned out to be my back. I ended up having C4, C5 herniations on my neck, as well as down L4, L5. And what would happen is that every time I would get injured or bumped or I fell, and this is when I was a flight attendant. I was also at that point, I had joined the Air Force. I was in the military. And then down the line, the last time I got injured, I was actually doing my MBA, like Dana, you mentioned. So, and this happened during a period of 5 years, like almost consecutively. Every year, it kept on coming around. So you got to give it a higher meaning, like there's like spiritual meaning, saying, all right, you're going to keep on going. When are you going to stop? So for me, what happened is every time I would get injured, within a week, I would end up down, like I would end up like an L facing the floor. I couldn't get back up. So just my back just completely gave, and I would have to walk around with a cane. And, every time I got injured, it would just get a little worse and a little more. And I would, do about a month of therapy, and then I would recover, but I would go back. So finally, the final time when it really did happen, and it was during Katrina, I'd been working a lot, being, flying internationally. And the last day, right when we were about to land, my back just literally gave away. But I could see it like an image, like a little hand went behind my back and just like a little minion and just went, like brought me down. And the battery in me just kind of went, and that was it. And I stopped. And that was the last day I could fly after 17 years of being a flight attendant. And when I went home, because it was like, I've always had this desire to help youth particularly. And for me, it was like, I would always talk to God and say, God, okay, I know that I need to learn the skill, and I know that I'm hurt, but I believe that you've put me here so that I can develop this sense of, my direction as how do I help youth? Because I have this huge mission in my heart to really help them. And, I used to cry when I would think about it. And then, but I'm like, but I need to figure out the way. How am I going to reach them? If I know their pain point, how do I reach them? How do I make a difference? How do I create this vision and this mission of being able to be a difference maker in their lives? And so that moment of me deciding that led me to becoming a volunteer at a migrant clinic, because I said, okay, I need to take attention away from me, and I need to go help those who are in a worse position than I am, because otherwise I'm just going to wallow in my own sorrow. So I went to go help them, and by giving them, my attention, my awareness, my heart just started growing, and it was like, I don't know, it was just like I think going back to my faith, our faith is like the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall inherit the earth. And then the other one is, Saint Francis's prayer of, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is, where there is injury, let me bring hope, let me bring light. And it's better to give than to receive. Well, I think that's what it is. Maybe I didn't expect to get something back in return, but the return is I had a lot of, like a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, and I did recover. And, it was a slow recovery, but I also knew, just to add to that, at that point I had moved back with my family, because I ended up being a single mom. And my mom was very challenging because she is old school. She's also Hispanic and immigrant, they came from Colombia to America. So for her outlook on life was different. And for her, she saw her daughter, single mom, halfway injured, broken, unable to work, unable to serve her own child. And understandingly so, my dad and her were really worried about me. And at that moment, I remember saying, okay, God is because I'm supposed to learn to love my mom in spite of the difficulties right now. And if I ever want to help youth and women, I need to have a good relationship with my mother. So I gave my injury, I said this was a catalyst for me to develop the spiritual and the practical tools that I needed to have.
Well, Sandra, that is so powerful. And I'll never forget when Paul Dean and I were writing the book, and we had the manuscript, and you were helping us, and we had a chapter called "Why Me," and it was about people losing their jobs. But your story explains why you suggested it, and we modified that to say, "Why not me?" Okay, why not me? And you just explained it beautifully. In the couple minutes we have, let me ask you a couple real questions. You can wrap up here if you will. But what is this God-given project you've been working on for the last 22 years? And what does France have to do with all this?
Thank you for asking such a question. Two questions. No, it's I say it's a God-given project because honestly, ninth grade, I knew I was helper of mankind. 18 years old, I remember, one time saying, okay, God, I got to learn this skill to help youth. And it's been such a progress because my basically I'm creating a digital university called Spirit of Life Pro University, and it's going to be a practical development coaching as well as a spiritual development entity where I have a model that's created by a triune assembly of an entrepreneur, which is business, a coach or a teacher, anyone that has, let's say whatever a person knows how to do, be it something practical, something spiritual, something, real, like I don't even give the words to that, but some trade or 40 years of being, anything. And then you also have a church, or you have a social agency where in that space we can educate youth. So, for example, the three of us here can go to a church and we can bring in what we know. So you guys, like Dana, you have all of your life history, and then Martin, you have your life history, you have your skills and what we do, and then me, what I have. And now what we do is we do a hack. So we do like they say, a biohack. Like kids right now do not need to go through 200 years of history to learn the lessons. So we can each, do a 3-day event, a 1-day event, a weekend event, a boot camp, and deliver so much content to them that they're so quick right now with everything that's going on that at this moment, all they need is like, okay, give me the 1, 2, 3, I'm going to run with it. And they combine that with AI. They combine that with, a digital platform. They combine that with, positive thinking. They combine that with all of these things, and they're going to be able to accomplish. And, it took us a lot longer, but it's almost like we're passing on the torch, but we're using the medium. So for me, this is called Rise to Win for our youth movement. And it's also part of, it brings about not only the model, but it brings about something that was very inherent to me as a coach, and this is something that God gave to me. I actually have a model, like Martin, to your question. I have a model that is entitled "The 7 Forces That Impact Your Values and Beliefs and That Affect Your Identity." So this is all about who are we, and then how do we go forward. So the way that I'm going to equip the adults coming in is by first they need to go through the training so that through their own life story, through their own past, through their own journey, through their own trauma, through their own challenge, because we all have them. And until we deal with them, they will always be a part of our psyche, part of our identity, part of our fears, part of our pains, part of our relationships. So for me, it's about like a double whammy. Like, you're going to take this, I'm going to help you get through whatever's been there. You're going to feel it. You're going to see it. And now, because it's experiential, now you're able to transfer it to somebody else. So now if your thing is to help, Gen Zers, okay, you're going to know how to relate to them because now you're going to understand where they are based on this. And, so that's why I'm like so excited, because this is where I'm entering now. And I've actually already entered it. You see those little notes behind there? That's actually one of my classes. And it's a 7-module course.
Excellent. And France. One sentence on France.
Oh, because it's the place of love, and everything that I have and everything that God has given me is all based on true love. But going to France is because during COVID, I got up and I saw this little book. I brought it here specifically for all of you.
Yay.
Is Discover the Heart of Jesus with Saint Margaret Mary. And this is the place where there were apparitions 350 years ago. And it's literally where the Sacred Heart of Jesus came to this nun and basically said, you know, you need to let men know that my heart is in flames for love, and I want to give it to them, but they're not coming to me. And when I went there, I really connected with that merciful love, which is very like childlike love. And it's so beautiful and so gentle and just so gracious. And now I want to share this as well. So, and I came to see, like, before, when I was a flight attendant, mind you, you guys said one sentence, so this is a long sentence.
Right.
When I used to fly there, I used to be like, where are the castles? Where are the restaurants? Where's the wine? Where's the cheese? Then it was like, where's the fashion? Now it's like, where's the saints? I'm like, where are all these sacred places? And I'm driving in the highway, and I'm so bad because I see that, like, a little village and this beautiful church, and I'm like, oh, I want to stop. I want to get off. And everywhere I go, where I am, it's all about that, and it's amazing. So, you know, I'm just so spirited, and I see this as a God-given mission, because when I went to school in college, my major was French. And when I sit in Paris Le Monial and I'm listening to, you know, the homily in French, or I'm singing with the nuns who are there, who are cloistered, you know, I'm like, okay, God, you gave me French so I would understand and be here at this point for this. So I also just got my visa for France. So I'm going to be, part of my work's going to be there as well. So it's international, you know. So there you go. So thank you for having me.
It is so
This is
exciting,
delightful.
and congratulations to you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Everything you've doing and what you're doing for youth and for parents and for moms and for us today, you know, here. And we wish you luck. Don't stay forever over there in France. I think you said you're going to be coming back and forth because your parents are here, and that's good. We'll get to
Yes.
see you once in a while. And maybe we'll make it over there too,
That's right.
to France
That
too,
sounds good.
Martin, one of these days
That's
together. But, you know,
Yes.
thank you. This has been very enlightening. I told Martin this would be fabulous to have you on our podcast, and you haven't disappointed us. So thank you.
Well, thank
This
you. I'll
is
tell
wonderful,
you.
and we'll have links below too of some of your you have sent us a bunch of wonderful resources. That'll be fantastic. Really enjoyed meeting you, and look forward to hearing further of your great journey.
Yes, Martin, I'll also let you know, I do have a radio show, so I'm going to be inviting you both on there as well, and I'm going to be doing it from France. So I'd love to get your stuff, because like you said, a lot of people are fearful. So we have to be the ones to spearhead change and not be afraid. And my platform is about, because I come from the personal development angle, I'm very much about not being in the box. So it's not about asking permission. It's about inviting others to come and join us. So here we are.
That sounds
Excellent.
great.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Wonderful.
You're welcome. God bless. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.